Greetings. It's Sunday night, and we welcome you to our Sunday night program, simply called the Sunday Night Meeting. My name is Stan Houston. The program is the Jesus Entrepreneur Experience, and it begins right now.
He careth for you. He careth for you. When the worries and cares of your life seem to block out the rays of His light, never forget, never lose sight, for He careth for you, for He careth for you.
And we do indeed welcome you. Just a preparation for hopefully a time on late Sunday afternoon, perhaps into early Sunday evening, before you perhaps get to rest early. Because, of course, on Monday we meet the marketplace. It's hopefully been a time of rest and reflection, as well as perhaps catching up on some of those errands, but then climax with a time of worship. And from worship, we move into our work. In fact, it is the time where we actually make what worship was all about, make it real in the everyday, in the right now. This message caught me as I was getting ready for tonight. I'd like to go through the various books that I have that are meant to be inspirational, insightful, perhaps motivational. And I came across a gentleman named John Carmody. Don't know him. I've heard of him, but some years ago he wrote a book called The Heart of the Christian Matter. And here's what he said. I believe Jesus of Nazareth, and I would say Jesus the entrepreneur, fulfills our deepest human hopes and clarifies our deepest human fears, but somewhat strangely. For he takes our hopes far beyond what most of us consider realistic, telling us that we can live forever with God. And he brings our fears into an almost punishing light, telling us that we can utterly ruin ourselves and our world by loving badly. Thus, Jesus' life makes our life dramatic. Like a story that soon will reach its climax, our time grows tense when we stretch it on Jesus' frame. The more intimately we know Jesus and His life, the more it turns our significance, our lives, into a reflection of His death and resurrection. Hey, what are we dying for? What are we choosing against? What will we rise to? How shall our last numbers tally? When Jesus burst upon the Israelite scene, He laid down His most forceful challenge. The time is fulfilled. The kingdom of God is at hand. Repent, change, believe the good news. I believe He continues to lay down this most forceful challenge wherever we allow Him onto our scene. So for me, the motive of the Christian faith, its cause and source, is the power, indeed the very allure of Jesus Himself. More and more, that's what it's all about. And some people have asked me, why do we call it the Jesus Entrepreneur Experience? Why don't we just call it what it is, the Christian Entrepreneur Network radio program? Christian Entrepreneur is the framework we operate in. The focus, the framework is the Christian Entrepreneur Network. That's what we operate in. That's where we do our marketplace and our matter stuff. But the focus is the Jesus entrepreneur, who He is and what He does in our life and how we experience Him. And we can argue with what the church does. We certainly can, with what theologians say, how preachers behave, what the whole thing called Christendom can and be and do. But it's really hard to argue with Jesus. Oh, we don't like what he might say, or we might not like some of the things that he seems to imply that we should be about. But when it comes to living a life that was full, that was rich, that was powerful, at the same time that it was plagued by betrayal, calamities, and difficulties, he shows us how to live, how to be fully alive. And even more than that, and here we turn it a little bit lighter. Yes, you read the title right. One of my favorite writers is the late Robertson Davies, and my daughter Amy, who is a young woman who is now not a young woman anymore. She's getting up there, but she was my daughter, and then she was a young girl, and then she was a young woman, and now she's a mature executive doing her own life and deal. She was raised with hardly any television. You see, we lived in a place where there was no television, and as she said, and there were no video games, and there was no internet. And so both of my daughters, Amy and Megan, they read, and they read, and they read, and they read some more. And that's how they really were educated. They read all the time. And she suggested that I read a gentleman named Robertson Davies, and I kind of fell in love with him. The people in Canada would recognize his name more than any other part of the world. He was from Canada. Kind of, you might say, their national troubadour in some way. A true moralist, as well as a storyteller. And in one of the stories, one of the characters makes a statement which had just struck me. And I can't remember, though I think it was more of an exclamation, but maybe it was a prayer, and maybe it was a both. It was one of those things, you know. It says, "Dear God, don't let me die stupid." And I remember just breaking out laughing. But then it caught me. Yeah. Dear God, don't let me die stupid. Well, when the word stupid comes up, all kinds of maybe behavior, ideas, and of course some people come to mind. And so what I would simply like to do tonight is just kind of leisurely reflect on that. There was a guy a number of years ago, well, no, not a number of years ago, a few years ago, who said, don't do stupid stuff. He'd been appointed to a major responsibility to try and clean up a mess in the government. And he said, just don't do stupid stuff. Don't do stupid stuff. And that became kind of a little mantra. It didn't change behavior, it seems, in any significant way. But don't do stupid stuff. Don't let me die stupid. Sometimes it's good to just remind ourselves. I put that sign up. Oh Lord, what am I doing that might border on, verge on, or hit the mark of being stupid right now? And it doesn't mean it's bad, though it could be, and there's a good chance it really will be, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that much. It's not central to my cause in life, to what I'm supposed to do. It's kind of stupid stuff. So may I ask you, as you're kind of giving a little light touch, hey, what are some of the things this week that are before you that perhaps you ought to say, that could be stupid stuff, and then from a greater and maybe more eternal scale, I ask myself this question: oh Lord, what am I doing to become wiser, more insightful, truthful, kinder, gentler, more graceful, and merciful? And that's the one I'm having the hardest time with. Merciful. Lord, how would you work with me today so that I don't die stupid. Help me to live today and plan for tomorrow in such a way that when it comes to the end, as my friend said, when the tally is put together, I don't fall somewhere in the stupid scale. Well, my friends, that's just a little 10 minutes of clarity which I would ask you to think about as you go into your Sunday night meeting. I'm Stan Houston. This is Radio Always on the Edge. This is the Christian Entrepreneur Network. RadioEdge77@gmail.com. RadioEdge77@gmail.com. TCENglobal.org. TCENglobal.org. If this has been helpful, we would appreciate a contribution. That's how we stay on the air. TCENglobal.org/contribute. And we'd be grateful for your help. I'm Stan Houston. That's my name. I'm a business performance coach, and I want to continue just a few minutes more by talking about feeling the pleasure and enduring the pressure. Friday, I told you a little bit about the film Chariots of Fire and the classic character Eric Liddell, the runner, the guy who wouldn't run on Sunday in the 1924 Olympics, disappointing everybody who expected him to win and run and win again. But then he did run, but it wasn't on Sunday, and he won. And when his sister Jenny, who was afraid that his obsession with running was going to take him away from his mission, which she believed, and he agreed, was to return to the mission field. And he did, by the way. And it was in a concentration camp after being captured in China by the Japanese that he died in a concentration camp in the captivity of the Japanese during the Second World War as a missionary in China. I actually knew and worked with a woman who had been a student of his. She was in that same camp, and he was her teacher. They were, as she would say, we were convicted together of loving Jesus, and that's part of the reason we, as long as the fact that we were also Americans and Dutch and others, were in that particular camp location. And she talks about his incredible influence on her life, that had an incredible influence on the life of some friends of mine. And that life had an influence on their daughter. And I was able to have a connection there. And so I can actually say that in some ways I was a continuation of the story of Eric Liddell. But remember his line. When confronted with his running, he said, "Hey, Jenny, God made me fast, and when I run, I feel His pleasure." And my challenge to you, as I'm looking at my life and my business, particularly at this stage in my life, what is it that I do when I am most likely to feel His pleasure? Where am I? What am I doing? What am I all about when I feel His pleasure? Oh, certainly, I believe in Him. I've had some experience with Him. I trust Him. I love Him. All of those things are there, but when do I really feel His pleasure? Just think about that, and then I may I bring up another line. That's the pleasure word. What about the pressure? Right now, I'll ask you to pray for me. I'm going through an incredible amount of pressure, as we put this new deal together, as we have all kinds of other business and life and concerns, I just woke up and I said, Lord, the pressure is really tough right now. So I could use a little less pressure and a little more pleasure. And he smiled. I just sensed his smile. Didn't say anything. Didn't promise anything, except that he would be with me and he would help take care of me. And I read Jesus Calling and found out you will have trouble, but don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. Kind of a word for the day for me. But my point is also that one of my favorite films, besides Chariots of Fire, is the film Shawshank Redemption, based on the book by Stephen King. And those of you who may know the story of a guy who was convicted and put in prison for a crime he did not commit and was there for many, 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 many years. And to use a hack-worn expression which doesn't come close to describing what he did, he made the best of it. And eventually, he escaped from that and lived a life that would only be described as redemptive and fully alive, just like what we talk about. And one of the guys who was helping him was kind of coaching him along as they were talking about life, and he said, you just have to remember, life is like a piece of coal. You see, a diamond is only a piece of coal that's under incredible pressure for a long, long time. A diamond is a piece of coal under incredible pressure for a long, long time. And we'd like to be as hard and sharp and as beautiful as a diamond. But maybe we forget that before we can be a diamond, we have to start as coal and endure a lot of pressure for a long, long time. At least that's a word for me for tonight, and I share it with you, and I hope it might make some difference in your life. As we continue here this week on the Jesus Entrepreneur Experience and the Christian Entrepreneur Network, we're going to take that metaphor of a diamond, and that's going to be a little of an illustration of what we are all about. Diamond, a piece of coal, under incredible pressure for a long, long time, and then perhaps cut and smoothed and sharpened by the master maker, the master diamond maker. You've got a busy week. I hope these thoughts, as you're putting your plan together, as you're thinking about your week, might be helpful and useful to you. I'm Stan Houston. RadioEdge77@gmail.com, RadioEdge77@gmail.com. I believe that whatever you're going through this week, I can help you, and I'd be glad to see, and I would be glad to try. Reach out and touch. We're in tune. Now let's be in touch. I look forward to hearing from you. We'll close it in just a moment. Bye for now. Yes, may it go well for you. God bless us all, everyone. Take the rest of the evening to finish your plans, to do some of your prayers, and then, of course, get your rest, because tomorrow it's Monday in the marketplace. Stay in tune with us. Keep in touch with us. We'll be here. Join us soon. Join us again. Bye for now.